I think we can start now. Okay, Jamal Burki has spent past 2 decades on the cutting edge of telecom and energy technologies. During 90s, Jamal was part of telecommunication industry, designing and implementing cutting edge technologies at Motorola, transforming the then nascent industry. Since 2012, Jamal has been part of the now nascent battery-based energy storage industry. Jamal Burki is the Senior Vice President at IHI Corporation and leads the energy storage business. In 2015, Jamal co-founded Renewable Incorporation that provides lifecycle management products and services for industrial batteries in the motive and energy industries. Jamal has BS and MS in electrical engineering from Illinois Institute of Technology and MS in engineering management from Northwestern University. With that, I hand it over to Jamal Saab. Thank you, Jamal Saab, for your time. Over to you.
Problem. So, assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum to everyone. Hope everyone is safe and healthy and all well. So, thank you for first of all reaching out to me for the opportunity. I would love to share my experiences and so forth. I just on my personal front, I actually grew up in Pakistan in Lahore. My father was in the military, so I've lived in Quetta for many years, Rawalpindi, which all military men must do. But then from 4th grade onwards, I grew up with my grandparents in Lahore and went to school there, went to government college, and then a couple of years at UET Lahore. In those times, those of you who were in Pakistan knew like in 88, 89, all the student unions were allowed to get into action again, and it was taken me 2 years to complete 1 year, so I decided to actually come here and transfer. And then, so I've been here in the US since 1990, always based out of Chicago, which used to be a telecom hub. So I spent first half of my career in telecom. And then, that was kind of the industry to be in the mid 90s. And I saw that nascent industry grow quite rapidly. But in the late 2000s, I would say it really had gotten commoditized. A base station that we used to sell for $300,000 really was now $30,000. So quite a drastic change in that industry, and it really went away. If you recall, Nortel that went bankrupt. A lot of consolidation, and then I decided, to really exit that industry and find somewhere where the next transformation is, and I decided to join renewable energy, and I moved upstate New York to work in GE at their Schenectady headquarters, the first campus they had. So I spent, I would say, about 3.5 years running their global projects and services they had invested in a sodium nickel chloride battery, a specialized battery for long duration. So had experience not only traveling to sub-Saharan Africa, Asia, Europe, but we also had put stuff in Pakistan in the telecom industry to support backup power. So quite an experience. And what I'm going to share today is my experiences, both what's happening in the renewable energy space, both on the rural energy generation, but also touch base a little bit about electric vehicle industry, how these two industries, which previously were really not as connected, are going to come together for what we call the renewable energy revolution. And then the second half, I want to share about, whenever there's change, there's opportunity. And I want to share a little bit of my own journey of stumbling into a challenge and then trying to innovate through it and setting up a business. So I put together a few slides. They're not wordy. I kept it quite easy for people to understand. Any questions so far? But I'm going to go ahead, Salah, just share my screen then. And please do ask me questions.
Sure, please, Jamal Saab, go ahead.
Yes, okay, let me see. Open system, allow Zoom to share your screen, yeah. Okay, yeah. Okay, so it's asking me that if I to allow Zoom to share my screen, is going to quit and join later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to allow it, and then I'm probably going to have to join back in. So if I drop, that's probably what it is for.
No worries, take your time.
Okay. Did that. Let me see if it allows me now. Okay, now it's doing it.
Yeah, we see your screen.
You do? Okay, good. So, like I said, I wanted to just share, my perspective. I think, Salah, you mentioned about IHI Corporation, so it will put things into context. So IHI Corporation is one of the oldest Japanese corporations. It was actually founded in 1863, when the Japanese society was transitioning from what called the samurai era into industrialization. The Japanese emperor commanded to establish a set of companies and different industries. So Toshiba, Mitsubishi, IHI, and many others were all formed back then. And IHI was chartered to do shipbuilding. So a lot of the real estate in Tokyo downtown is actually owned by IHI, but IHI also does many of the things. So they have over 4,500 suspension bridges around the world. Those of you who've traveled to Turkey and you see the beautiful bridge on Bosphorus is actually made by IHI. They have an aerospace program, which actually makes launch shuttles for the Japanese space program, does jet engines, makes jet engines for GE. It has an energy sector, which really I'm part of because part of the energy, and they make nuclear power plants, though unfortunately the Fukushima power plant was a collaboration between Mitsubishi, IHI, and GE. And then they have another division, which is most industrial, so make a lot of turbochargers. So IHI has very high-end turbochargers for motive applications. So if any of you own a Ferrari or a Bentley, they'll probably have an IHI turbocharger in it. Anyway, so just a little bit of context where I come from. I do run their energy storage business out of Chicago that's headquartered there. So whatever I share with you has that knowledge behind it. So I just want to start from saying, whenever there's a transformation, a change, there's some driving force behind it. Even though there's a lot of lobbying around fossil fuel-based energy generation, the reality is climate change is real. We can see it, it's gradual. We may not feel it, but it's happening. You can see the increased number of fires that are taking place. And this year was exceptionally devastating for the US, with all the fires on the West Coast, the floodings, the tornadoes. So it's happening, and it is man-made. The increased amount of fossil fuel-based energy consumption and generation is just not sustainable. I always tell people, go back 50 years, there was really the Western countries that were generating a lot of waste and were consuming a lot, were the big consumers. And to that, we have added 3 billion additional people with the rise of China and India. You can just see that escalation has happened, and it impacts all of us. So there is a real drive behind the change, and so what you've started to actually see is that what I call the green evolution has started to take place, and it's impacting two of the largest industries in the world: the energy industry and the motive industry. Both these industries actually have already started to go through a transformation right in front of our eyes. Now, it's going to be very slow. We may not feel it, and especially it's going to be more prevalent in the Western world than it's going to be in the developing countries. But the evolution actually has started. I will not spend a lot of time on the motive or the EV side of it, even though I have a good understanding of what's happening there. But even in the West right now, the electric vehicle phenomena is still not only nascent, it's what's the right word? It has barely scratched the surface. The penetration of electric vehicles is under 1%, and people usually it strikes a good conversation, but in reality, for the electric vehicle industry to really take off, there is not only the manufacturing and the infrastructure of the electric vehicles is going to be important, but you have to actually redo the entire infrastructure behind. Because as you know, the electric system or the grid system is really designed about how we live our lives. The capacity of generation is designed around what time people wake up in the morning, they go to the office, they come back home, they turn the TV on, and that's how the power generation is managed throughout. So now, bringing in millions and hundreds of millions of electric vehicles into that just totally changes that dynamic. So you can't just think of the switch from the fossil fuel-based internal combustion engine to the electric vehicle industry without really thinking out the larger ecosystem that's going to actually support it. So you have to redo your electricity grid, and you also have to redo a lot of the infrastructure that's required for charging, as in charging stations and so forth. So it's quite a long journey. However, the positive is that some of the largest auto manufacturers like General Motors, and actually Volvo has already declared that after 2024, they will not make any more internal combustion engine based cars. So that's a huge, huge change that we may not see in our lives, but for sure, the way our children view vehicles in general, with smart cars coming in and transportation as a service. You really don't need to own a car. You can just have a service. The car shows up. It's a driverless car. Those have started to, so think about Uber without actually a human driver in there. So this industry is driving the change in the motive. And when I say motive, it's not only electric vehicles. Hybridization of ferries and some of the big ships have actually already has started to happen. A colleague of mine, one of the co-founders actually in Renewable, works in the automotive industry with GE. I think now it's called WebTech. And they are actually already putting a megawatt hour or more of energy storage into some of the marine vehicles. So this is going to continue, and it's a gradual change, but it's bound to happen. I'm going to now switch towards I'm going to talk mostly now on the energy sector, what's happening. At times we overanalyze things, but in reality, some of the realities of life are relatively simple. So this discussion about the polluting, energy resources, they definitely are finite, but the clean energy and renewable resources are infinite. Our planet actually, in 1 hour, we receive enough solar power from the sun in 1 hour to meet the needs of entire humanity for 1 year. So you can just see, and you don't need to mine solar, you don't need to do anything for wind. So the raw material of renewables forms of energy is actually free. So there's no debate about is a coal power plant or gas-based power plant is better versus renewable. Of course, the renewables forms of energy are better. It's got its challenges, but this transition actually have started. So again, as I mentioned earlier, the climate change is going to continue to drive this thing, and I'm convinced that this will change. It has already started to change, and I'll give you a couple of reasons why I see that. One is there are no more coal power plants being built. Most of the countries have actually said they're not going to make them anymore. The company that I work for, IHI Corporation, one of the key businesses is to make large coal power plant boilers, and they're not receiving no new orders. And so you can see that coal is going to die out, and coal is not die out only because of concerns of environmental impact to it. Coal is just dying out. It's expensive. In the US right now, the cheapest form of energy generation is actually wind energy. And then comes solar and gas. And the issue with gas also is I believe gas is going to go the way of coal, because just earlier this year, there was a gas pipeline that was canceled. This gas pipeline was being funded by Duke Energy, which is kind of one of the largest utilities in the southern ISO, and then and Dominion. And the cost of that gas pipeline and permitting of it basically made it uneconomical. And now the experts in the energy sector believe there's never ever going to be another gas pipeline built in the US because of environmental concerns and so forth. So the bottom line is the future is renewable, and it's just going to take time because you need to have financial incentives, regulatory incentives to actually make that move go faster. I want to start to talk a little bit about what are the challenges. Why, if renewable energy is all good, why isn't it happening fast enough? So back, 100 some years back, when the power generation all started, the energy infrastructure, as you know, is very much based on a hub and spoke model. You have centralized generation, and you have transmission and distribution, and that's how it's been. If you have a nuclear power plant, a gas power plant, coal-based power plant, you should do major generation, and it gets distributed. And so the benefits of a centralized model like that is you can press a button and turn it on, and you press a button, you turn it off. Not that easy, but it's very dispatchable. So the term dispatchable is you can increase the capacity or decrease the capacity for the demand when you have that kind of a model. Where with renewable energy, it turns itself on the heads in the sense of, first of all, it's very distributed. You don't have a power plant. You can see those gas turbines, each one maybe 2-3 megawatts. It's distributed. And when you have wind energy and solar energy, and you look at some of the large solar power plants, they're all distributed. And secondly, renewable energy is intermittent. Sun doesn't shine all the time, and the wind doesn't blow all the time, so it makes it very difficult for dispatchability. You can't tell your consumers, by the way, today was cloudy, I was not able to generate that much energy, so good luck, don't have energy for you. So these are major challenges that renewable energy is dealing with, and the solutions for it to making renewable energy dispatchable, so it's not intermittent, is the big, call it the holy grail of energy management that we need to find a solution for. The other thing is you start to see these things really when you are hitting about 20-30% penetration of renewables form of energy into a really overall power mix. And we start to actually see that in California, in Arizona, a lot of the western states where you have actually a lot of solar generation. What's happening there is during the daytime, they generate more solar energy than they can actually consume. And so they have to curtail, meaning let go, waste. And then you have, in the evening, you have a steep decline of solar energy, and you need to really turn on your gas turbines to ramp up so that you have a demand. So this is a major challenge about it. So solutions have to be generated. And that's where energy storage comes in. You cannot have a real solution to renewable energy if you don't have a way of storing energy. You got to be able to store the energy when it's being generated in excess, and got to be able to use it when you need it. It's called a time shift. Charge it during the daytime, discharge it in the evening time. Again, energy storage has been around for a very, very long time. You have the hydro-based energy storage, pumped hydro. You kind of pump the water up during the daytime, and the evening you let go to run the turbines. You have compressed air, which again in US, so pumped hydro and compressed air is still very large forms of energy storage. However, you can't have pumped hydro everywhere, and you cannot have compressed everywhere. So battery-based energy storage is really the holy grail of energy management. You can store energy, and you can dispatch energy when you want. And so this industry really started in the mid-2000s, really a big way, where lithium-ion based technology, which really started in 1980s with Sony, actually came to age where now early electric vehicle batteries started to be produced in a large form factor. So if you look at a Tesla S85 vehicle, it's got 85 kilowatt hours of batteries in it. It's the most expensive piece in the vehicle. So what happened in the mid-2000s was there was just so much euphoria around electric vehicles, and as if everyone's going to have an electric vehicle, these large battery OEMs that include Samsung and LG Chem and many others really ramped up, created very large factories to respond to the demand. But that demand really actually didn't happen. And so there was excess capacity in those manufacturing plants. And these guys thought of, you know what, we can actually create a stationary energy storage market or industry. So that's where it started. The early deployments were in California with Southern California Edison and PG&E. And so that's where it started. So in about, I would say earlier this decade in 2010 to 12, it started in these large pilots, but now many gigawatt hours of energy storage is being deployed across North America and many other countries. US still leads in terms of where the most deployments are, but pretty robust deployments actually in Canada and Ontario area. They have an incentive program. It's called Global Adjustment, which is basically a peak shaving kind of a system level peak shaving application. So it's coming of age. You know, I remember just a few years back, 1 to 5 megawatt hour project was considered a large project. Now we are doing projects that are over gigawatt hours of single deployment. So this is an industry still in its nascent form, but holds a lot of promise. For those who may not know a lot about batteries, but lithium ion is got the most energy dense technology, unlike lead acid or many others. And it's really good for about 1 hour to, I would say, 4 hours of duration. Once you go above 4 hour duration, you have sodium-based batteries, you have zinc-based batteries, there are flow batteries. But to really have, I would say, a sustainable energy, renewable energy landscape, you have to have batteries that can be charged and discharged in 1 hour, 15 minutes, all the way seasonal shift, meaning you can store enough energy during summer that in winter months, you can continue to discharge. So those are silicon-based technologies that are coming, where you will have very large units, many gigawatt hours that you can charge up during summertime and then discharge during winter time, and you don't get enough sun. So those, a lot of things to come. One thing that I feel very optimistic about, you know, times when you and I, we were all going through college, you know, working for an energy company wasn't really the sexiest thing, right? I mean, we all wanted to be part of telecom or IT because that was considered the key industry to be. But now what I see, and at times I talk at different universities, but I see, you know, some of the brightest brains, the most smartest children coming out of, first of all, they're going to college for renewable energy, you know, bachelor's or master's, but then they're also joining these startups and companies that are actually in the energy sector. Typically, even in the US, you know, if you're working for a utility, you're working for WAPDA, basically, you know, there's hardly any growth and there's no incentive to do anything. It's very much regulated environment. So I have a strong belief that this industry is going to go a long way, and there's a lot of opportunities for people to be part of the industry and solve challenges there. So I'll take a pause. Then I want to, well, maybe I'll just button this up by saying, as I said, it's nascent. There's a long road ahead for this industry to scale, but the growth is happening. The regulatory framework for energy storage is loosening up. And you can see the kind of map I show on the left. You see those states are quite active in providing incentives. On the left, West Coast, they have a huge solar penetration. When you have large solar penetration, you need to have energy storage to store. Like I said, you know, sun doesn't shine at night. And on the East Coast, what they're doing is it's land constrained. So what they're really trying to do is what they have called the clean peaks. In US, the energy infrastructure is overbuilt for.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Our question answer has to be at the end. So do you appreciate?
Oh, you can interrupt me, and I'll be happy to answer questions.
Thank you so much. My name is Casper. I'm from Toronto. My question is that when it expands, obviously there'll be a lot of requirement around the globe. So from a raw material point of view, from resources point of view, that we need, for example, huge quantities of solar panels will be built up and huge quantities of silicon-based batteries, which you're saying. So around the world, are there resources, such a huge resources of raw material available? And what are those raw materials? And are there any negative impacts of using the mining that raw material over the environment?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, solar panels, the answer is probably not as much. It's silica, sand, there's abundance of that, and glass primarily. Not as much supply constraint on the solar side, but there are constraints on the battery side. Because where the lithium sits in the periodic table, it's very unique element. Lithium is not so the two things, there are two types of lithium batteries, and we're going to continue to see lithium batteries or its derivatives to be used for, I would say, decades to come. Not only because of the unique benefit of having high energy density, you can have a lot of energy in a small battery, because if you were not able to do that, you will not be able to put batteries in a car, because electric vehicles require 300-400 miles on a single charge. You will not be able to do that. So you have two key competing technologies in lithium batteries. One is the NMC, nickel, manganese, cobalt. Cobalt, as you know, is difficult. It's mostly in Congo and China, and nickel is also it's constrained. But the industry is moving more and more on an LFP, which is the lithium iron phosphate, and there you don't really have any supply challenges on LFP. So when you see an electric bus or you see a large energy storage system, more and more of that is from LFP, and NMC is mostly for electric vehicles. Yes, there are constraints on both nickel and cobalt. And so what's been happening, and I'm going to share that when I talk about Renewance, is kind of have a circular economy around these. So you deploy them, they run, you recycle them and bring them back, just like we do with lead batteries. So yeah, okay, so that was a good question.
Thank you.
And so I think I shared with you, it's going to continue to grow as the cost of batteries come down and the regulatory framework loosens up. We're going to see more and more of this. And so with that, I would switch to talk a little bit about, when I started, I said, where there was transformation, whenever there is change, there's opportunity. And I want to talk a little bit about, how, my own journey of, how I identified something and then created a business out of it. Any questions around just in general energy industry change that we're going to see over the years, I would say over the decades and so forth?
Well, I'd like to ask you, Jamal. I'm Shahid Hamid.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I was the one who established this Alternative Energy Development Board in Pakistan way back in 2003.
Okay.
Now, things have gone, it progressed so fast. My question is, you talked about lithium ion, various forms of lithium ion. What about supercapacitors? Sure. Because lithium ion has a problem of temperature, high temperature and things like that. Supercapacitors have a problem of quickly discharging and things like that, which have been overcome now. And I think that is becoming very popular. A bit expensive though, but I think it's catching on. Mm-hmm. And third thing is, like you talked of, storage only. How about hybridization of renewables, and in which I think there is a lot of work going on hydrogen fuel cell. Yes. Now, some people claim they've made something like about up to 50 megawatts of these power generation plants. Now they can be very, they can run on sewage water or whatever it is, so you get clean water plus the energy. So if we can hybridize, particularly in a country like ours, Pakistan, where there are a lot of tidal resources. So with tidal, we have solar. And the main concern is to meet energy demand during the peak hours. And if peak hours, the solar or wind, the wind is normally better in the later days of the later hours of the day. However, solar is there for 7 to 8 hours. And with hybridization, you have hydel or hydrogen fuel cell, or storage-wise, if you look at it, either lithium ion, as you said, there's this tight problem on the raw material. However, you could use supercapacitors, something like that. So just an idea. I mean, what do you have to say about that? Yeah.
Yeah, I shared good points. You need to have a really robust energy strategy. You need to have a little bit of everything. You need to have energy generation as a base load, and that's going to continue to be either nuclear, some gas, hydro, right? That's going to take the many gigawatt hours, gigawatts of power that a society needs. And then when you talk about supercapacitors or flywheel, they all fall into what I call the very small duration. And they're applicable in the ancillary services, which is frequency regulation kind of thing. So yes, superconductors, supercapacitors, flywheels, very short 15-minute batteries, they're all part of that overall solution. You're going to have a very hard time having a 2-hour, 4-hour, strategy around supercapacitors or flywheels. But you can have a really good strategy for these frequency regulation and other ancillary services that are very short duration injection of power into the overall the grid. Fuel cells have been around for a long time. The challenge with fuel cells is it's a viable solution, but its OpEx cost of continuing to kind of feed it mostly hydrogen becomes very challenging. And so that's why a lot of the companies, at least in the US, they mostly have ended up into like niche things like in the forklifts and fuel cell based. It didn't get traction in buses either. So I think it is a solution in North America that it hasn't really gotten a wide distribution, but it's been around for a long time. So that's why I would say, but I think the hybridization is really important. You're gonna have to have a way of, like there are hybrid gas power plants to have this ramping challenge. Because as you know, in the US, the peaker plants, which are really for the, what you call the peak demand, right? And mostly these peaker plants have anywhere 5 to 10% utilization. So terrible utilization. And most of these either gas or coal powered. So they're very polluting and they're very expensive to maintain. So my view is that in the future, you are gonna see only energy storage based peaker power plants. These power plants will be obviously instantaneous ramp up, and you can use them for service throughout the year. Whereas peakers usually are only kicked on in few times a year when you have excess demand, or maybe once a day, depending on where it's at. So I think what you're gonna, in my opinion, what you're gonna see the future for a country like Pakistan, that's a very, very good solution. You already have some wind, I think, being put, when I was with GE, they were putting wind turbines in Gwadar area.
Yeah.
Right. So
we have we have something like, now about 1,700 megawatts
awesome.
installed.
Okay. Yeah. So that's exactly right. So you have wind, you have solar. Pakistan is blessed to have a lot of hydro, and then you start to put energy storage, and you can start to put energy storage behind the meter in commercial industrial. I remember when a few years back, GE had its headquarters in the ARFA Technology Center, and FC College was actually putting a solar and an energy storage solution there. So it's been a number of years now. But with Pakistan, the challenge obviously is energy storage is still quite expensive. The batteries are still anywhere from $200 to $300 per kilowatt hour. So, but I think I see a lot of positive trends with India, Pakistan, and China collaborating. China truly is the world leader in pretty much everything. I mean, they've got 100% grasp on a grip on the solar solar panel generation and development, and also energy storage. Almost all of these batteries are coming from China. I'll give you an example. You know, in the US.
Just
Yeah.
to just want to add in here.
Yes.
What about permanent magnets? You know, because now that's something which was only restricted, but now people are working on the permanent magnets also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with that, but Chad, my things, I've seen a lot of part of what I do. I've got a lot of companies, startups come, and I sometimes evaluate and look at them. There's a lot of research happening in all kinds of chemistries and all kinds of ways. And I'll tell you a couple of things one needs to keep in mind. For any new technology, as you know, you can demonstrate in the lab, you can build some modules, but scaling of that technology, scaling of the manufacturing, scaling of the supply chain, and then on top of it, you have to compete with incumbent technologies, which have 20 years, 30 years. Lithium-ion technology has a 30-year head start to anything that someone's going to start new. So unless this is a game changer and it makes financial sense, they really, really struggle. There's a company in Boston, in New Jersey, actually, Edison, that are based on zinc. Good technology, nice, you know, it doesn't have challenges with, you know, very high energy density, so the risk of fire is low. But energy density is very low. The round trip efficiency is very low. So when you're putting it into, when you put a financial model around it, the payback is 20 plus years, whereas with lithium ion based technology, you can have a payback in 3 to 5 years. So you need to look at the whole evaluation. You know, we as engineers, I realized is, you know, we get enthused with the technology itself, but you need to look at the full ecosystem and see what will it take for a technology that's coming out today to compete with the problems that have already been solved at a much lower cost, I would say. So,
Jamal, now I just wanted to, because the few things are happening here in Pakistan, which I am aware of.
Yeah.
Like, for instance, supercapacitors.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in our northwestern region, they are going to install some supercapacitors. Now, and the duration that you're saying, 15 minutes now, it's about 2 to 3 hours or 4 hours. And
Okay.
by the way, economically speaking, now lithium ion is, you know, some 1,000 cycles or something, but supercapacitor is about 1,000,000 cycles. So look at the life of the battery. From that, again, now we're talking of economics, not the capital investment.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
we have to figure out things, you know, accordingly when you're talking of, you know, the economics, the financial side of it.
That's right. That's right. Yes, you're right. Yeah, the batteries that mostly are being deployed in the energy sector have anywhere from 5,000 to 8,000 cycles.
Yeah.
And, you know, actually the duty cycle on the EV side is actually quite light, because in a 10-year electric vehicle life, you're doing full cycling about 600 to 700 times only. Number of times you go to a gas station when it's fully charged and fully discharged. But on the energy sector, you could be, on an energy side, you could be charging, discharging every day. So you can see that. But your point is that you're very valid. I think supercapacitors, in my view, is going to be part of the puzzle. It's going to solve a problem.
Yeah.
Especially because I was quite surprised that it's got such a long duration supercapacitor. So that's pretty good. I don't know about it. So good. I'd love to know more about how that's coming along. So I think in interest of time, I just want to show you know, one thing, and I think this is going to help folks who are entrepreneurial in nature or want to start something. And so, as I shared previously, the whole infrastructure is going to change over the next decade or so. So there's a lot of opportunities in EV infrastructure, you know, charging stations and all kinds of stuff. So someone's going to have to look at it and understand what they're doing. I stumbled into this idea of Renewable back in 2014-15. As I shared with you guys, I was actually overseeing deployment of sodium nickel batteries globally in about 20 plus countries. And so those of you who've been on operations, you can just see you have a new product is getting deployed in all kinds of places. And I was fortunate to travel a lot of these far-flung areas in sub-Saharan Africa and in Asia and Europe. So we had deployed it in about 21 countries. Unfortunately, there was manufacturing challenges in the batteries, and they started to either fail or, those of you who know batteries, if you overcharge them, they can explode or they can catch fire. We didn't have an explosion, but it was quite difficult. And so I was chartered to now bring these batteries back or get them disposed of. Sodium, as you know, catches fire if exposed to moisture. So it's a dangerous, hazardous waste. And so I started to look for how it's going to happen. And started to ask around. And obviously, as you know, lead acid battery has been around for over 100 years. They pretty much 99% of them actually get recycled. Lead is recovered and reused. But there wasn't really any infrastructure around about sodium batteries or lithium-ion batteries. So that was quite a challenge. I traveled and looked around and said, there isn't one. And then I also found out that if you do have waste in, let's say, countries in sub-Saharan Africa or in Asia, and there are global treaties that monitor and enforce movement of waste between countries. The Basel Treaty, specifically for waste, you cannot ship something from the US, which is not a signatory of Basel Treaty, to a Basel Treaty member. And so it made many levels of challenges, not only from the technology perspective, but also from regulatory framework. And I decided, hey, this thing is only going to get so much more difficult, so much needed, that I said, okay, well, I'm going to quit my job at GE, and I started Renewance. I think I started a little bit too early in the market because there wasn't as much volume later on, but so be it. So really what challenge really we were facing was there are hundreds of these millions of industrial batteries that are being deployed all around the world. This is the first time in the energy sector and also in the motive sector that a product or material that's a dangerous good, it's got, some of these batteries have, I would say, medium voltage, anywhere from 1,000 to 1,500 volts, is deployed in such a distributed manner, right? You have nuclear power plants, but they're consolidated and highly regulated and monitored. Now you have all these batteries, and there can be contaminants, they can catch fire. People don't know how to manage them when they reach end of life. What's going to happen to these hundreds and hundreds of millions of batteries, both in electric vehicles and in energy storage? And so that's what I said, okay, well, let me figure this thing out. And I quit my job. I got two other of my colleagues together and basically developed a solution. I'm going to show you this thing. Let me take a pause here. So really what we created was a software platform, a marketplace, where there's a lot that goes behind this, where if you are an asset owner or obligation, you have a liability to dispose of these industrial batteries because you are the waste producer. You can place your asset on this marketplace, and you have service providers, which are people who can dismantle, decommission, transport, or recycle it, or repurpose and resell these batteries. And Shahid, I think you will appreciate, not all batteries are created equal, and not all of them die out. You can have first life of a battery, but if it's an electric vehicle battery, your range goes down, and you may not want to have a car that can only goes 100 miles. So you want a new battery, but that battery be good enough for a secondary application. Instead of paying to recycle, and lithium-ion batteries are a net pay to recycle, you could deploy it at a residential backup power or put in a golf cart. There's a lot of secondary applications. So you want to create an ecosystem and a marketplace where it's an easy way for you to place your assets on this market. And existing infrastructure, which is the service on demand business model, that's what Uber and Lyft uses. It's a service on demand. There are people who have capacity, and there is a demand. and you meet that up, and that's what a marketplace mechanism is. So we created this marketplace mechanism, and we've been kind of working on trying to bring more and more participants on. I'm going to show you a little demo of it. It's just, I think, a minute or two.
Sorry, Jamal, again.
Yes.
Excellent presentation. Now,
Yeah.
you're talking of Basel Convention.
Yes.
By the way, we in Pakistan, though maybe we are not as advanced as you guys are in America, but we are working on this electronic waste management thing.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to make a policy. So it's not only the batteries, it's all, your whatever chips, etc. So that's very important from the climate change point of view also. So
Absolutely.
I think there where maybe people like you can help us out because we're trying to regulate, because there is a policy which is coming out, and I'm a part of that. That is for the electronic waste management. We're trying to find people, and there are some experts around in the world, and maybe you can help us out also in this electronic waste management, because Pakistan is a huge, a place with a huge dump of these electronic waste stuff. And our Kabadiyas, people like that, they are trying to, sort of make the best out of it. But there is no policy to that effect. So we thought about it, we're coming out with it. And it's very important, as you said, for, even for your batteries, etc. So we need to know how to dispose them off without disturbing the ecosystem.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'll be happy to share, Shahid, more about it because, we kind of live this every day and understand it. And, my thing always has been, if you can create a business model around it, then things flow much easier and you're not pushing a rope. And so absolutely, I'll be more than happy. And I think some of those concepts kind of work. China did an excellent job at it. China has been able to create, and they're kind of the world's largest recyclers of everything. And they are profitable. Whereas the rest of the world has been dumping their electronics and batteries and all that. They've been taking them in and recreating and extracting all these precious metals and materials and then redoing it. So quite smart about it. But this concept that I was going to show here is the same thing. Making it easy for an asset owner to place the asset on the market with a single click. You can say, I have so many batteries, I have an energy storage system. With a single click, the requests go out for RFP or RFI to many suppliers. They respond back with proposals. You can select one, sort it by environmental impact or cost competitiveness. Select, click, execute. So if you're an asset owner, if you're a large utility, you don't want to be running around. This is not your core competency. So that's what our software platform, what we call the Renewable Connect, actually does. And we have managed over 500 metric tons through this platform in the last couple of years. And you can see, as I told you earlier, you have, we were a bit early in the market, but we had firsthand dealt with it. I had the sleepless nights and trying to figure this thing out. So you really didn't need we're typically in a startup, model, you have that inception and then you need to have validation and then you kind of go into startup and a growth phase. We lived it. So we didn't need anyone else to tell us. So you needed to have a conviction, and which every entrepreneur needs to go through. And now we have a growing list of really top tier customers that we have done, global battery take back, for instance, with GE, are now working with UPS for the electric fleet of trucks that are in California and so forth and so on. We are about to launch a partnership with one of the largest battery manufacturers in the world. So that's going to happen. We've got the contract in place already, but we haven't done a press release on it. So you can see where there's a challenge, there's an opportunity, and you need to just put your mind to it and have the conviction and willing to bet and stay with it. That's been our experience. Renewance was also declared the winner of by DOE, so we are part of a program. They've given us some funding, and my hope is that we're going to win the next couple of phases. So it brings a lot of credibility when you talk about that you're part of the Department of Energy program, and we're a portfolio company. We're a Clean Energy Trust, which is, again, a Midwest trust that funds and supports green energy companies in the Midwest primarily, has trusted us and supporting. So again, it has been a long journey. So the way it's said, I'm the CEO of Renewance, and the larger equity holder, and then I have a partner in New York and a partner in Netherlands, Tom and Sander, who were my colleagues. So you can see this transformation driven by climate change. Status quo is not possible. Things are going to change. And in that change, if you can find out some problem to be solved, there's an opportunity for that. So with that, I think I'm almost out of time, but I'd love to see if there are any other questions or any way I can help. I'd be more than happy to do.
Well, thank you very much, Jamal, for a very nice presentation. I think in future we'll keep in touch with you. And since we are very much on, I remember when we started this, when I started this renewable thing, not me, my team, of course, it's not one person. So at that point in time, there was a lot of opposition, from who. Mm-hmm. And even, they printed my cartoon, a man, I have a French beard kind of a thing. So in his shorts and vest, trying to pull the tail of a hathi, elephant.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That was the time, but now I think that hathi is now becoming much smaller, and I have my full clothes on. Absolutely. So I think the renewables are really doing well here in the country, and even we are very much. I mean, the target is by 2030, we'll have 30% of the energy mix from renewables. So that's a very good sign here in Pakistan. And
Shahid, how's the PTI government? How is it? Because a lot of the any new industry or technology requires a lot of support, because regulatory framework especially in Pakistan, where the utilities is state-owned utility, it's not easy, right? I mean, just even in the US, it's very difficult to get the interconnection. The utilities have no incentive. I mean, think about it. If you're an electric utility, you don't want any of this, because now, if you're a homeowner and you have solar panels and you have your own batteries, you're not pulling any electrons on the wires. So the utility is going to actually lose money for this. Or if you want to do sell it back, which is the net metering in the US. So there's been a lot of lack of enthusiasm by the electric utilities. But here, after all the challenges the US has politically, but the regulatory bodies do force new technologies and mandate the utilities, otherwise they would not do it. How is PTI government? I mean, obviously sitting here in Pakistan, in the US, anytime I hear something good about Pakistan, I appreciate it, and obviously look forward to it. How is the landscape for that with current government?
Well, let me give you a brief idea. I mean, the present government is very much susceptible to these things, like renewables, for instance. They are the ones. Okay. In fact, we had a lot of meetings together, and they accepted the target, which is by no means a small target. It will be difficult to achieve 30% by 2030. Nevertheless, I think at least you have a target there. So I think they are trying to help out. You are absolutely right. Main hurdle is your NTDC, the National Transmission and Dispatch Companies, because they lose on it. We also have net metering now in Pakistan, very much, effective, becoming effective now. So what we need probably is smart metering or a prepaid metering systems, apart from the net metering, because there's a lot of energy losses, which till to date have not been controlled. And there where the government, present government is complacent. They have not been able to do that. But we, it's the people. We always blame the governments, but I think it's you and me who have to bring about the change.
Absolutely.
So I think hopefully with the time, the way things are, probably we will be able to get our energy management thing sorted out. Basically, it's the energy management.
That's
I mean,
right.
no matter what the source is, but how you manage it.
Yeah.
So I think there where there is, of course, there's a lot to be done. And I think people like you sitting there can help us out. We have a lot of talent here in Pakistan. Nevertheless, we have a lot of talent outside like you who can, sort of synergize and work out things
Absolutely.
for Pakistan.
Chai, as you know, one of the benefits of renewable energy, apart from all the environmental thing, is also resilience. When you have a local population, self-generating, you don't have much centralized dependency on a single point failure. So in the US, actually, if you look at a lot of the fires that have taken place in California, they're rethinking of, instead of having these long transmission lines which can cause fire, they're thinking more of microgrids. Australia already has done that for far-flung populations, trying to do microgrid model with renewables. It's much more sustainable. Same thing is happening in Africa. I think for Pakistan, it would be a really good model too, but obviously it's not as much for city centers. So there are a lot of benefits that come with. So, but I'm really happy. I do have a good friend of mine. He's one of the founders of Hecate Energy. They're very large in solar. He actually had, unfortunately, with the previous comment, wanted to put a large solar farm. What was it was it in Sindh or South Punjab? There was a large solar power plant, and
Qaid-e-Azam solar plant.
Yes,
In
Bahawalpur.
In Bahawalpur,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Bahawalpur,
their company really struggled through red tape, and he just on principle did not want to not be above the table, I would say, deal with it. So anyway, I think I'm happy that the current government is pushing for it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, no, we are going in for the microgrid also, because majority, there are about 7,000 to 8,000 villages still without electricity. And we're trying to develop these microgrids. And then, of course, we have these, with renewables, you have the off-grid solutions too. So the government is working on it.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Yeah. I'm definitely a big well-wisher for that. And all the news I hear, they're mostly positive that come out of the country. So I'm quite optimistic about it too.
Jamal, can I ask a question?
Yes.
This Renewance, this seems to be a good platform. So what is the way to join, and how can we connect with you? I just followed you on LinkedIn, but since I don't have your email, I can't connect with you there.
Yeah, just if you can go on LinkedIn, just say Jamal Burki. I should be there.
I found you, but actually I need your email to connect with you, but I followed you there.
Okay. Yeah, I think if you go on LinkedIn, I expose my email. But otherwise, it's jamalburki1@gmail.com. You can just send that to me, and then I can connect you with the Renewance person that actually can then help if there is any question.
Okay. I'm just connecting with you. Thank you.
Yeah. Alrighty. And any other questions, comments?
Also, one quick question.
Yeah.
In microgrid system, what is transmission losses?
I would not know. I don't know what that'd be. I can find that out. I can tell you. Usually, I can, because I've been very close to energy storage. The batteries are extremely efficient. They give almost 99%. But round trip efficiency of an energy storage system is about 90, anywhere from 95 to 97%. So it's very good as compared to some other technologies there.
Jamal Sab, this is Azfar. I have a quick question for you as well.
Yes.
I think you have a lot of experience in the sector. So in terms of investments, where do you see the growth happening? Where are the opportunities? And if you could just talk a little bit about that, the next 5-10 years, if one were to invest in the renewable energy sector as an investor, not as a startup or anything, where
Yeah.
are the opportunities?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm actually not a very good advisor because all my investments outside of what I've done myself I usually come to the party a bit too late. But I always think of, having a conviction. And if you look at the renewable energy, you don't want to invest in anything that's traditional fossil fuels based energy generation. There's no future to it. It's all renewable. So you want to invest in solar power companies, wind power, energy storage companies. Absolutely. There's only upside to it. So I would say that I think investing in battery companies is important, but you have to be really careful what chemistry, what technology it is. Like I said, I firsthand, a lot of, because where IHI or Renewance is at, we would be the customers of a battery company. And so understanding the chemistry itself, the life, the cycles, the guarantees, the balance sheet, very important. So I think investing in established battery companies would be also another good place to start because it's only going up.
And what about government subsidies? Is this thing that going to continue on, or not? That maybe Biden may get may become president of the United States, and he's moving forward with the new Green Deal. You think the subsidies would continue?
Oh yeah,
in the sector.
He is already the president, elected president.
They haven't declared yet, but I tell you, we had a really, really hard time with President Trump. He had put in with the tariff war with China. He had implemented 25% tariffs on solar panels. At some point, it was about 17% of batteries. It kind of came down. It's still there, and very, very challenging. But still, a lot of the subsidies are at state level. So New York, Massachusetts, California, they're all, liberal leaning. So there are incentives already in place, as much as 30% incentive. So those are, and I think they're going to double down on this. Just like Europe is doing, they're calling the green recovery. I expect that, I think it's pledged about $2 trillion to be on the renewable energy side. So I'm quite optimistic that it's going to come in and it's going to double down, and that's going to be really, really good for not only for the environment, but the industry in general. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Jamal. I'll be leaving. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you.
We'll keep in touch.
Absolutely.
And, of course, thank you very much.
Okay.
Bye for now.
Thank you. Oh yeah, Salah.
Thank you, Jamal sir. Thanks a lot. Really appreciate for your time and so knowledgeable session. We had this.
Thank you.
So kind of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay.